In the heart of Texas's $2 billion wheat country, fields that should be heavy with grain now lie bare. County after county reporting total wheat failure, a collapse locals compare to the Dust Bowl. The losses are staggering, but beneath the surface, an invisible crisis is brewing. Soil moisture has hit a 70-year low, and the state's agricultural backbone is fracturing. What pushed America's biggest wheat state to the edge? And can anything save it before the devastation spreads further? The answer starts here. Texas wheat country stretches from the high plains through the Panhandle and into the rolling plains, a region where wheat fields once shaped the rhythm of life. In 2024, that landscape fractured. Statewide, wheat production slipped to about 71 million bushels, down roughly 8% from the year before. But those numbers concealed a harsher reality on the ground. The Panhandle alone typically accounts for 70% of Texas wheat. Yet local reports from counties like Deaf Smith, Castro, and Palmer tell of fields where combines never ran, and harvest logs show acres written off or grazed out before heads could fill. In the rolling plains near Abilene, the story repeated itself. Extension agents recorded dryland yields in some fields at 20 bushels per acre, far below the 35 to 45 bushels once considered normal. In certain test cuts, yields dipped into the single digits, forcing families to abandon harvest altogether. Across the wheat belt, the decision to walk away from a crop came not from a single bad season, but from a string of years where drought, hail, and relentless winds turned optimism into survival math. Family planting records from Dimmitt show a familiar pattern. Seed and fertilizer were bought in hope. Diesel bills stacked up. And then the hard choice came. Graze out the wheat for cattle or destroy the stand and claim insurance. The official average yield of 34 bushels per acre hides these local collapses, where the gap between what was planted and what was harvested has never felt wider. Each county map now reads like a ledger of loss, with abandoned acreage stretching from the Panhandle's edge to the rolling plains, and families left to wonder if next year's numbers will ever add up. Bare ground stretched across the high plains as the 2024 wheat crop struggled to take root. Texas A and M soil, moisture probes, some tracking data back decades, recorded severe deficits through the winter and spring, levels not seen since the worst droughts of the early 2000s. The U.S. Drought Monitor maps painted the Panhandle in deep red, signaling extreme dryness, just as wheat seedlings needed moisture to establish. Without timely rain, roots remained shallow and vulnerable. By late March, extension specialists reported that many fields in Deaf Smith and Castro counties never developed a full stand. The lack of cover left topsoil exposed to relentless wind. Sustained gusts swept across open acreage, stripping away the finest particles and carrying them into fence lines and ditches. In some areas, bare patches outnumbered green rows. Wind data from Amarillo's National Weather Service office showed above average speeds during critical growth periods, compounding the problem. Aerial surveys captured thin, uneven fields dotted with bare ground, while ground-level photos revealed wheat plants with stunted roots, some never extending beyond a few inches. Where wheat did survive, it often suffered from freeze damage or desiccation, with the plants unable to recover. The environmental mechanics of the crisis were clear. Depleted soil moisture starved young wheat. Relentless wind scoured exposed ground, and shallow-rooted plants failed to anchor the soil. These physical failures set the stage for the economic pain that would ripple through every layer of the wheat belt in the months that followed. Invoices from fertilizer dealers in Dimmitt and Hereford tell the story in hard numbers. Preseason orders for seed, chemicals, and diesel went out as usual last fall, with family farms signing for tens of thousands of dollars in inputs before a single sprout broke ground. By spring, many of those fields never made it to harvest. The receipts remained, stacked in household ledgers, while the expected grain checks never arrived. Equipment dealers across the Panhandle report new tractor and combine sales down by half or more compared to an average year. Service shops that once ran double shifts now idle, with unsold machinery sitting on the lot. One Amarillo dealer's internal sales log, reviewed for this investigation, showed a 60% drop in unit sales since last season. Fertilizer and chemical suppliers echo the collapse, with some co-ops in the wheat belt losing nearly half their usual business. Operating loan statements from area banks reveal the next layer of strain. Producers who borrowed against expected yields now face negative balances, unpaid notes, and restructuring talks with lenders. Some banks have begun tightening credit for 2025, wary after back-to-back seasons, where even insurance payouts failed to cover principal and interest. Extension economists estimate that when the lost grain revenue, input purchases, and downstream effects are totaled, the economic hits to Texas wheat country in 2024 may run between $1.2 billion and $1.5 billion. That could wipe out years of accumulated equity in a single cycle. The numbers ripple outward, with empty grain bins, unpaid invoices, and a cash squeeze that leaves little margin for the next planting season. Sorghum, the other pillar of Texas grain farming, buckled under the same drought that crippled wheat. Texas usually grows about 80% of the nation's grain sorghum, much of it in the Panhandle and High Plains. In 2024, estimates from extension economists and USDA analysts show statewide sorghum production down as much as 45% from the previous year. Even fields that typically withstand dry spells struggled. Many never reached maturity, and some were cut for forage or left to wither. The blow landed hardest on farms that double-cropped sorghum after failed wheat. Instead of salvaging the season, producers took a second loss, 2 sets of seed and fertilizer bills, and no revenue to cover either. Ranchers who rely on dual-purpose wheat for grazing found themselves squeezed from both sides. With pastures bare and wheat stubble useless, they turned to hay markets already strained by drought. Feed invoices from Panhandle ranches show hay costs spiking, sometimes doubling as supplies dwindled and trucks hauled in bales from hundreds of miles away. Cattlemen unable to secure enough affordable feed faced an impossible decision: sell off breeding herds built over decades, or go deeper into debt with no guarantee of relief. Grain sorghum prices, which once offered a buffer, collapsed as export demand from China evaporated. Trade disruptions and weak global markets left local elevators with unsold stocks and producers with little bargaining power. The combined shock, crop failures, soaring feed costs, and vanishing export markets has exposed the fragility of an entire supply chain. For many, the numbers on ranch bills and grain contracts now read like a warning. The margin for error in Texas agriculture has all but disappeared. Hydrographs from the Texas Panhandle tell a stark story. The Ogallala Aquifer, lifeblood of the region's wheat and sorghum farms, has dropped more than 40 feet on average since the 1950s. In 2024, well tests in counties like Palmer and Deaf Smith showed water levels too low for many pivots to run, forcing more acreage into risky dryland production. Electricity bills for irrigation pumps have soared as farmers draw from deeper, shrinking reserves, making every acre-inch of water a costly gamble. At the same time, letters from regional seed suppliers warn of tight inventories for the coming season. Poor harvests mean less certified seed, and some companies are pulling back operations. Texas flour mills, facing inconsistent local supply, have started importing wheat from out of state. Transportation costs are rising, and local jobs are threatened. Down at the Gulf, port logs reflect the slack. Grain exports through Texas terminals have slumped, with ships waiting for cargo that never arrived. The entire supply chain, from aquifer to export dock, is now straining under pressures that show no sign of easing. Texas wheat acreage is now set to fall off a cliff. Extension models project a 20 to 30% drop in planted acres for 2025, the sharpest decline in a generation. Producers, already stretched by 2 years of negative cash flow, face a planting season with no soil moisture and little appetite for risk. Payment delays compound the pressure. Crop insurance and federal disaster relief often arrive months after bills come due, leaving families to juggle operating loans and unpaid invoices. The policy checklist is clear. First, expedite disaster and insurance payments to bridge the cash gap. Second, provide targeted credit advances through local FSA offices so farmers can secure seed and inputs before planting windows close. Third, invest in rapid research deployment. Get drought-tolerant seed and soil health practices into the field, not just in trial plots. Without immediate action, the next season's numbers may never recover. Today, Texas wheat country stands at a crossroads. With Ogallala Aquifer depletion and persistent drought reshaping what is possible, the future of American bread baskets hangs in the balance. The choices made now will decide whether rural communities adapt or disappear. What happens here will ripple far beyond Texas.